Hey everyone, and welcome back. And secondly, welcome back to episode 4 of Back to Basics for the Headrush Prime. For those just checking me out for the first time, I'm Aaron, and in today's episode, we're building your first patch on the Headrush Prime. Whether you're playing electric guitar, acoustic, bass, or even running vocals, this is your foundation. And to make things even easier, I'm giving you guys several starter patches that you could download and load into your Headrush Prime products just so you guys can get started. Let's build your sound from the ground up. So what exactly is a patch? So a patch or a rig is a signal chain where your amps and cabs, EQs, and time-based effects are all laid out in order. Think of it as a fully customizable digital pedal board and amp rig. So now, instead of building a patch live, I've already put a few together to save us some time and make things a bit more focused. What I want to do now is walk you through one of those patches and break down exactly why I built it the way I did. What amp model I chose, which effects I added, the signal flow, and how each piece plays a role in shaping the final tone. Moving forward, we are going to be utilizing the IP addressable editing software by Headrush Prime. I'm going to start by explaining to you and showing you guys what pedals are on the patch or rig, and then we're going to make some noise, and I'm going to play through some of the groupings and sounds and combos that I have on the patch as well, and then we're going to dive a little bit deeper into my EQ choices, the compression, what effects I chose, so on and so forth. All right, we're talking clean guitar. This one's got a great starting point whether you're going clean or need a little grit. It's got a core clean tone right at the center with a little bit of hair on it, so if you really decide to dig in, you got a little bit of breakup. Simple, dynamic, and super playable. I've also included a couple variations in this same stack. One with a fuzz, another with a transparent overdrive, and a third with overdrive and delays to add some spatial effects to bring it all to life. Next, I'm going to show you guys the same clean tone using my bridge pickup on my guitar with an added delay and reverb. Following that ambient clean, the next variation of this clean has two different fuzz pedals on it. One fuzz is more transparent and allows for more tonal quality, almost like an overdrive, and the secondary fuzz is more indistinguishable, violent, and meant for a special type of playing or sound effects. I'm going to demo both of those now. Now we're moving into overdriven and high gain stuff. This next little bit is going to showcase the crunch channel on the 5150 as well as a compressor for channel 1. And for channels 2 and 3, we're going to be utilizing that same crunch channel. The only difference is channel 2 is going to be utilizing the TS-808 overdrive by Ibanez, and that channel is going to have a more bitey, thin sounding tone to it. And then channel 3 is going to be utilizing the Morning Glory by JHS, which is more rounded and full. This is channel 2 on the Headrush Prime utilizing the TS-808. And this is channel 3 of that stack with the Morning Glory by JHS instead of the TS-808. Now that we have played through the groups and stacks on the Back to Basics guitar patch on the Headrush Prime, there's only one thing left to do now, and that is to show you guys how I built the patch and why I made the choices I made. So I don't really know how I'm going to explain all of this that's going on right now in this patch. There is a lot going on. And it's going to be completely unscripted. So I just ask that you guys give me a little bit of grace and be patient with me while I try to describe how I did this, because I invested a lot of time in this patch for you guys, for myself, because even I really like the patch. And we're just going to start from point A to point B. I'm going to try to be as descriptive as I can. I'm not going to try and overwhelm you guys, but I'm just going to do the best that I can. So beginning, I made the patch in a universal way. If you haven't figured it out already, you know, we have clean guitar, we have crunch guitar, we have some specialty sound effects like fuzz, and we have some overdrives, we have high gain, low gain, some tasty ambient and elemental effects going on. And I laid the board out in a manner that you would think about laying out an actual pedal board. So on my pedal boards, you know, typically I would run like a volume or a wah at the very beginning of the chain, and then stuffing like modular effects like fuzzes or drop tuning or octavers, I would keep as close to my guitar as I could and not closer to the amp. So I have my wah at the beginning of the chain, I have the fuzzes at the beginning of the chain. Behind those fuzzes, I have a dynamic compressor. This dynamic compressor is specifically there for the clean guitar to grab and catch and bring some vibrance into the DI signal of the guitar, whatever, before it hits the amp. We've got the two overdrives, we've got the TS-808, we've got the Morning Glory, and then I've got another compressor This compressor is on, and I keep it on. It's a very subtle compression. It only adds a little bit of bite when we're on the crunch channel and there's no overdrives going, and then it stays on, and then having those overdrives or stacking those overdrives just adds a little bit more hair and even more bite to that. And I put all that before the amps. Now we're using two different we're using two instances of the same amp. We're using the 5150 on the clean channel, and we're using the 5150 on the crunch channel. Behind that, I've got two amps. I'm using the 6505 prototype and the 430A. I've got a parametric EQ, 10-band EQ, and then I've got a dynamic delay and a room reverb. I would typically keep these all after the amps and at the end of the pedal chain anyway, or run them through an effects loop. So now let's run through the rig and the patch. I've got everything off, so what you're hearing right now is just raw guitar into the Headrush Prime, essentially just the DI, and then I'm going to go through the stacks and the groups and the combos and all the changes I made, and that'll be it. So this is raw DI'd guitar. This is with the 5150 on, with the amps on, and I keep saying amps, the cabs. I also caught that mistake earlier. This is with the 5150 amp on the clean channel on, with the cabs. And I didn't really do too many changes to the clean channel on the amp. I did, the mids were at 50%, and I did bring those down to 25. And then the 3-band EQ that is within all of the settings, all of the pedals, all of the parameters, I just left it flat and left it alone. I didn't feel like the clean amp needed it. And this is how that sounds with the amp and those cabinet combos. Continuing down the line, I didn't really go into the cabinets. I told you what cabinets we're using, but I didn't go into specifics. So I made very few changes to the cabs. I'm running a dual mono rig. It's very easy also to make it a full stereo set system, but I've got the cabinets blended into each other. And like I said, I'm using the 6505 prototype. It was using a 57 on the mic, but I switched it to a 121, and I also made it on axis. And then for the other cabinet, we've got the PV here. There was a 121 on it, and I put a 421 on it, and I made that cabinet off axis. All the rest of the settings and parameters are stock. And then the 3-band EQ is flat on the 4030, and then it's also flat on the prototype, and both are revolver cabs also. So I knew I wanted to have an all-in-one kind of guitar patch. I already knew what pedals I was going to use and where I was going to put them the biggest thing that I needed to do was to make sure that I could keep the volume levels as close to the same as possible. So I spent a lot of time with a dB meter on my desk and having a room mic out and in front of the speaker, in front of the cabinet, and all the things, just making sure that the volume relevance was at least close. But we're gonna go down the line. The fuzz specific is just a black wall on default settings. I left that 3-band EQ flat. This is what it sounds like with the clean amp and those cabs. A little weird, I know. I still have the Headrush Prime right here on my cabinet, so I'm using my hands. I apologize. Down that road, down that list, and there is a stack for this. I made a stack. If I hit this, I wonder if they'll turn on. Yeah. Okay. So we're just gonna go down the line. So if I hit the patch, this is just the clean with the dynamic compressor and then the parametric EQ. The parametric EQ in the 10-band, the changes I made on the EQ, I made universally. So the adjustments were for everything, both the clean and the crunch amp and the cabs, plus any of the combinations of pedals. And I could see that I left that 3-band EQ flat. And then same with the 10-band, I did made some small adjustments. So if I open up a picture of the curve, you can see that I'm rolling off everything below 130 hertz. Everything above 6,000 K is gone, and I'm bringing down 32. That's how it sounded in the room. And then obviously 250 to 300 for the low mids. And then for the 10-band, I have brought down I've boosted the lows a little bit, the 125 hertz by a dB and a half. I've brought the 250 down a dB and a half, and then 500 low mids almost 2. I put a subtle boost at 1K and a boost at 2K, and brought the 4K down 3 dB, and then everything else is flat. This is essentially how that clean tone sounds with the EQs off and on. I'm going to turn them off and I'll turn them on for you guys. And also with the compressor on and off as well. Moving down to the second stack. This is the clean channel of the 5150. We have got the tri-fuzz on there, and it's practically, the volume is usually a little bit louder, but right now I have got it. It's essentially default. And I did make some subtle changes on the 3-band EQ for that fuzz. I didn't want the fuzz to have hold of a bunch of low end and low mids, so I rolled off up to 260, and then the fuzz by default had a lot of bite and like ear hurt and ear curdling nonsense in the high mids, and so I cut 2200 to 22 to 2500 down 4 dB just to make it a little bit easier on the ears. And I'll actually turn this on and off so you guys can hear the difference. Ultimately, the idea wasn't to alter how the fuzz sounded, but to kind of focus it a little bit and clean it up and make it shine through a mix. If we hit channel 3, the second the second button on the Headrush Prime, we get into channel 3 of that clean tone. And this switches from, you keep the cabs on, you keep the parametric EQs on, you keep the compressor on. Honestly, you can turn the compressor off. The compression is so, it's a dynamic, it's not very violent. I don't see the point in turning it off, but if you want to turn it off, you could go ahead and turn it off. But this turns the tri-fuzz off and then turns the round fuzz on. I did bring the volume up a little bit to try to keep that dynamic as close to the amp volume as I could, you know, keep it flat and keep it relative within the range that I wanted to live. And then I brought the physical fuzz down a little bit. And then I also messed with the 3-band within that pedal. I did not, because I wanted this fuzz to be a very violent fuzz, I didn't necessarily want it to be dynamic. I needed those square waves to come in and just lay in on it. I kept the range pretty full. The only thing I did was bring the high mids down about 2K. At 2K, about 6 dB, because it was a little bright. And like I said, like one of the things I care about is making sure that people's, you know, you could hear anything without destroying people's hearing. So I brought that 2K down a little bit, about 6 dB, just to make it a little bit more pleasant. And I'm gonna demo that now. See, it's a little bit more controlled. It's not so harsh. So that's how I made that choice. And obviously, you can just hit the button on the thing and it switches between the two of them. Moving on, we are now getting into the crunch of the crunch of the patch. That's funny. This dynamic compressor is actually supposed to be off. So that's, yeah. So I have to fix that. But, so this, oh, that's a gate. I'm a moron. Funny, laugh. We could tease me about it later. So this is just the crunch without the overdrives, without fuzz, without any delays or reverbs. It's just raw crunch. I've got the compressor doing the same amount of compression that it was doing for the clean guitar. The only difference is I've added a gate to kind of control the noise, and make sure that it stays tight. So I do not believe that I added, no, I left the 3-band on the compressor alone. And then I have the 3-band on the gate, but I rolled off up to 100 hertz just because if I'm assuming, and I could be wrong, but I'm guessing that if that frequency is gone, I don't have to worry about it. So I rolled off 100 hertz just to be safe. And then on the crunch channel on the 5150, I did make some subtle changes, but nothing too violent. Essentially, all I did was everything is still default, except I brought the presence way down, and I brought the pre-gain down, obviously, because I wanted, I didn't want a lot of distortion or overdrive. I wanted a lot of the overdrive to come from the pedals and not the amp itself. And even then, just on the crunch channel, there's a lot. Yeah. Like even then, just on the crunch channel, there is a lot of overdrive still. Caught here in a fiery blaze. Got my will to stay, and I drive. Okay, so yeah, super. It's practically default. I just brought the presence down, and I got the pre-gain down just because I didn't want a lot of overdrive and distortion coming from the amp head. I wanted that to come from the pedals, and even just having the compressor on there kind of brought that bite up a little bit more naturally. Now we're going on to channel 2. Is it channel 2? Yeah, we're going on to channel 2. And in this channel, we activate the TS-808, the overdrive by Ibanez. The settings on the crunch channel on the 5150 are the same. They're same on the cabs. The parametric EQs are the same. I'm running the TS-808 how you would run it, like how anybody else runs a TS-808. Essentially, I'm assuming most of the population does this, unless you play a different music style. But there's no drive. The tone is at 50%. The level is up at 100%. I did miss with the 3-band EQ because I didn't want to, like, this is how I managed to get the parametric EQ and the 10-band EQ to work universally. I used the parametric EQ for an overall carving once I had everything dialed in to how I liked it in my ear. And then on the 10-band, I used the 10-band EQ for coloring and shaping. But what I did is I did roll off 200 hertz on that 808, and then I brought down some low mids, about 500, about 5 dB. And this is how that sounds. It's a little bit thinner. And I'm going to turn it off now, and you guys can hear the difference with it on and with it off. I do want to add that this doesn't turn off the pedal. This just turns off this 3-band EQ that we're using within that parameter, within that pedal. And And then obviously, you know, the reference with the 808, and then just the compressor and the amp by itself. See, it's very subtle. You can barely hear the difference. The only thing the 808 is really doing is adding some bite. It's adding a tiny bit more gain, but it's more or less used for bite. Just something a little bit brighter, something a little bit harsher on the overdrive side. Moving on to channel 3, we turn off the 808 and then we go into the Morning Glory. Headrush calls it the Glorious Drive, but it's the Morning Glory by JHS. It's one of my favorite overdrives. I love this thing. I am not running the Morning Glory like I am the 808. I wanted to go for a second overdrive that had a little bit more color in it. Wasn't just like bam distortion, bam overdrive, getting all this from the pedal and not the amp. I wanted to have an overdrive on here that you could use for more riffage and riff writing and rhythm guitar rather than super tight dynamic djenty stuff. So what I did is I brought the drive actually up. It started out at 0, but the drive is at 30%. I brought the level down to 35. It was actually at 50. So to keep the volume level close to relevant, I had to bring that down a little bit. I brought the tone is still the same at 50 or default, and then I left the gain alone, and I actually turned the high cut on. And I did mess with the 3-band EQ within the pedal. I rolled off up to 130 hertz. I wanted to have a little bit more low mids in it. You know, I wanted it to be a little bit more round. I cut 450 to 500. You know, not too bad. And then I actually left all the high end in there. And this is how that EQ sounds within the pedal, on and off. Again, very subtle changes, just to focus and just kind of tighten up the tone a little bit. Nothing too crazy. And then that's it, really. The only thing that I did add after the fact is that on the bottom half of the Headrush pedal board, and I'm actually going to go like on the bottom half of the Headrush pedal board, I made it to where you can stack certain things and you have control over singular parameters so you don't have to worry too much. So, you know, like on the first button here, we've got just the clean, If you hit this one time, then you go from clean to the first fuzz. You hit it again, it turns red. Now you're on to the round fuzz. If you hit that third button, you've got the crunch. If you hit the fourth one time, you got the crunch with the 808. Hit it again, you got the crunch with the glory. You got the morning glory. You can just switch that off, and it's made to where you just hit them and it goes back to those presets. Well, on the bottom 4 down here, I have the tri-fuzz on, so if you wanted to stack the tri-fuzz, let's say with an overdrive or with the crunchy amp, you have that ability to give it even more hair and even more square waves and even more dynamics. And you could even do it to where if you have the crunch channel active, or the second on channel 2 on the crunch channel active, you could turn on the glorious, you could turn on the morning glory to stack overdrives, and then on the last 2 here on the bottom, I've got the reverb and the delay, and you could choose to have those on constantly or off. And they are also, if you hold it down, you could set it into hands-free mode and choose to hold it instead of pressing it. That way you only need it temporarily. Building patches doesn't have to be complicated. It just takes a little time, experimentation, and understanding your signal chain. These patches are designed to be plug and play, but they're also a great base for learning and customizing. Let me know what you think in the comments, tag me if you use them, and don't forget to like and subscribe the video if you want more episodes. I'm excited to release part 2 of this video to you guys because that'll be the bass patch. I hope you guys have a great rest of the day, and thank you for watching.